We've recently spoken about rare earth elements and other strategic minerals and how they play in geopolitics and current trade negotiations, particularly between China and the United States. And we've spoken about some of the ways in which the United States is reacting to the need for a more critical mineral supply outside of China. Let's also take a look at how Europe is responding. The World Economic Forum recently put out an article saying, "From chips to turbines, Europe depends on these critical rare earth materials. Europe's race toward net zero and digital leadership depend on materials it does not control." This creates a paradox at the heart of Europe's net zero transition plans. There are numerous minerals included in this, including the rare earth elements, as well as some other strategic minerals. We will focus primarily on the rare earth elements. A focus in Europe is on clean energy, and according to the International Energy Agency, clean energy technologies could increase 4 to 6 fold by 2040. However, each electric car requires about 200 kilograms of minerals, 6 times more than a conventional vehicle. Europe has some ambitious climate goals. By 2030, Europe plans to produce 69% of its energy from renewable sources, including 510 gigawatts of wind energy, and produce 18 million European made electric vehicles. However, the continent relies heavily on imported materials for these items. This is particularly true of the rare earth elements, where China is absolutely dominant. China produces approximately 70% of the rare earth oxide raw materials, but produces 90% plus of the refined materials. The EU has very limited domestic rare earth production. It sources 98% of its rare earth magnet demand from Chinese suppliers. Similar dependencies exist for magnesium, gallium, and germanium, which are important metals for semiconductors and defense technologies. Along a similar vein, the European Union Institute for Security Studies recently put out an article entitled "False Sense of Security. European Complacency on Rare Earths is the Wrong Answer to the US China Trade Truce." The article basically says that there's some relief in Europe about a bit of a reprieve in some of the negotiations between the US and China. However, Europe should stay focused on its long term goals of increasing domestic supply of critical minerals. Now, Europe has perhaps been a bit behind the eight ball in terms of taking action to reduce its dependence on foreign supplies, particularly on the rare earths. But it does have some domestic supply, and it does have plans to ramp that up. There are no current operating rare earth mines in Europe, but there are two processing plants. There was already an existing plant in La Rochelle on the west coast of France that had processed rare earth materials for largely for the automotive industry. But now there is a new plant that just had a grand opening in September in Estonia. That's operated by Neo Performance Materials, a company that already produces rare earth elements elsewhere in the world. And it will actually produce rare earth magnets domestically in Estonia. As well, Europe recently announced plans to stockpile critical minerals in this competitive space. The United States has been stockpiling quite a few critical minerals, quite often buying those ahead of European acquirers. And now Europe is looking to take action and begin to stockpile minerals of its own. While Europe does not have any current operating rare earth mines, it does have several known rare earth deposits, including two very large, recently discovered deposits in Scandinavia. First, there's the Fen deposit, the Fen carbonatite complex that's in southern Norway, and that was recently discovered in 2024 by a company called Rare Earths Norway. And that is already in discussions with local regulators and the local community to advance permitting on the project and is already working toward completion of a pre feasibility study, potentially by the end of 2025. This deposit is now the largest known rare earth deposit in Europe. It contains about 8.8 million metric tons of total rare earth oxides. And of this, roughly 1.5 million tons is in the highly prized rare earths that are used to produce permanent magnets. A second large project is in northern Sweden, and it's owned by a Swedish state owned mining firm LKAB, which currently operates a very large underground iron ore mine in the region and announced the discovery in 2023 of this rare earth deposit near that iron ore mine. That iron ore mine is very large and has been expanded over time. This has resulted in actually the requirement of relocating a town. The company successfully relocated a large historic wooden church about 5 kilometers from its original site down the road. And will also need to relocate about 6,000 more people, approximately 2,700 homes that that are located in the region. That relocation would come at a cost of about 22.5 billion Swedish kroner, which is about $2.4 billion US. That project benefits from already existing infrastructure and its proximity to an existing operating mine, which tends to give a little bit easier permitting and local acceptance by the community for a mining project. So, while Europe has been a little bit behind in developing its own domestic critical mineral supply, it is taking action. What are your thoughts on what Europe is doing? Has it waited too long to advance these domestic supplies? And how will it be able to compete with North America and China and other countries as a result of its dependence on foreign minerals? My name is Tim Lee. I'm a geologist and mining equity research analyst, and we'll continue to produce videos related to the metals and mining space and its importance in global economics. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful and interesting, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below telling us some topics that you'd be interested in hearing more about. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.